Hello, you. You're listening to A History of Italy. Episode 175, The Italian Wars 7, Milan under threat, 1499.
Lasci colli nelle valli, tra due salici piangenti, io ritrovo la speranza di un amore che ormai fu.
You, my dearest constant listener, will be tired by now of hearing that upon the untimely death of King Charles VIII of France in 1498, at the age of only 27, the throne of France went to his cousin, Louis of Orléans, who became King Louis XII. As well as the ancestral Angevin claim to the throne of Naples, Louis also bought his personal claim to the duchy of Milan thanks to his grandmother, Valentina Visconti. Upon her marriage back in 1389 to the then Duke of Orléans Louis I, the deal had been that, had the male Visconti line of the Dukes of Milan run out, the duchy would go to her descendants. Well, the line had died out, as we know, with the death of Duke Filippo Maria Visconti in 1447, but at the time, the French were not able to stake their claim, and the duchy went to Francesco Sforza. Now, things were different. With regard to a campaign in Italy, Milan was a lot more of a logical first step than hauling an army all the way down to Naples. Once the French got through the Alps, passing the lands of the allied Savoy, they were practically there. Once he had control of Milan, Louis could then use it as a starting point for a subsequent invasion of Naples. Then there was another issue: revenge. We know that the Duke of Milan, Ludovico il Moro, had initially been the strongest promoter and supporter of Charles VIII's Neapolitan expedition, but had then turned on him and joined the league that had faced off with the French at the Battle of Fornovo as they were leaving the country. It was now payback time. We know that before he was ready, Louis had sorted out business at home by marrying Anne of Brittany, widow of the dead king, thus assuring the loyalty of that French region. To have his existing marriage annulled, he needed permission from Pope Borgia, Alexander VI, and that had come in exchange for a title for Cesare Borgia, now the Duke of Valentinois, and a French bride of royal blood, Charlotte d'Aubray, sister of the King of Navarre. The deal had included a mutual assistance clause. Cesare promised to support Louis in his expedition to take Milan and then Naples, and Louis would support Cesare in his attempt to carve out a duchy in the Romagna area, officially under the Papal States. Other deals were made with England, Spain, and the Swiss to guarantee their neutrality, as well as the support of Burgundy. Then there were the Italian powers, particularly Savoy and Venice. Savoy was an easy one. They had been under French influence for a while now. The Duke at the time of the descent of Charles had been the young Charles Carlo Giovanni, but he had died in 1496, the duchy going to his uncle Philip of Bresse. It was he who, on the 7th of November 1497, officially fixed the capital of the duchy in Turin, on the Italian side of the Alps. Anyway, Filippo didn't last long, and was then succeeded by his son, Filiberto, who became the second of his name, and it was he who had an important role in brokering the deal then between France and Venice. That deal was a little more difficult. For example, there was the question of Pisa, for whom Venice wanted independence and Louis to hand it back over to Florence. In the end, it was decided it would be under the influence of Duke of Ferrara, Ercole d'Este. Still, not everyone in Venice was on board with the idea, and this included the Doge himself, Agostino Barberigo, and some of the members of the council. But they were outvoted, showing once again that the Doge was by now more of an elected figurehead than a sovereign with supreme power. So, on the 1st of February 1499, the Treaty of Blois was sealed, and Louis could finally get things rolling. The muster was to take place in the Piedmont city of Asti, where incidentally you can get some great wine, and the command of the army was assigned to Milanese outcast and condottiero Gian Giacomo Trivulzio. Speaking of Milan, Duke Ludovico il Moro was also preparing, but not doing a very good job. He attempted a whole series of diplomatic roads, which actually included trying to buy off King Louis himself, but nothing much came of anything. The only real significant ally was Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian, who did not really offer much help except for a few vague words of encouragement. Federico of Naples, who knew he would probably be next, sent some cash and a promise of troops, but they ended up not arriving in time. Then, of course, there was Ludovico's niece, Caterina Sforza, Lady of Forlì and Imola, and she actually did deliver, showing up with troops that she herself actually led, but they would end up being pushed back by the French. In the end, all Duke Ludovico could do was to get into debt and try and build an army, which he did, but in his increasing paranoia, he would trust no one except his closest advisors and family members, and so he assigned the control of the army to his son-in-law, Galeazzo Sanseverino, who was pretty good at jousting, but had very little experience leading armies. As the saying goes, just because you're paranoid, it doesn't mean they're not after you, and the people of the Duchy of Milan, oppressed by heavy taxes, were not at all pleased with their duke. Venice, according to the agreement with France, was supposed to open up hostilities by invading the Duchy of Milan from the east, but they dithered. King Louis very quickly got annoyed, and so sent word to Trivulzio to go ahead and invade from the west. Things kicked off on the 15th of July, 1499, with Trivulzio taking some minor fortresses around Alessandria. At this point, Venice understood they needed to get moving, so their army, under the condottiero Niccolò Orsini, advanced from the east, easily taking Cremona, since il Moro had diverted troops from the east to try and stop the French advance in the west. The initial towns taken by the French were treated with great cruelty in an attempt to send a message to the others. It worked, and city after city opened their gates to the French. Il Moro had thought to slow the advance with a series of sieges, but without the cities willing to stick out their necks for him, the strategy quickly fell apart. The practically useless Sanseverino fled back to Milan. It had not been Il Moro's initial intention to leave Milan. He initially intended to seal himself up in the fortress of the city and resist from there. He made his way to the place he would always go to seek solace and comfort, the tomb of his beloved wife, Beatrice d'Este. On his way back, he had the chance to observe that Milan was on the point of boiling over, and understood that the citizens would not be willing to defend him. The situation finally spilled over and riots started. The discontent was not limited to the plebs. Many important Milanese nobles had already reached out to French King Louis to offer terms. On the 31st of August, a man by the name of Simone degli Arrigoni led a group of men that attacked and killed the Duke's treasurer. At this point, Il Moro began to imagine himself holed up in his fortress, besieged not only by the French but also by an angry Milanese mob, not knowing if he would be able to trust even those inside with him. He called a general assembly in which he announced that he would head to the Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian to seek help. He set up a provisional government, and on the 2nd of September, he left. On his way north, he stopped off in Como, where he was actually received with enthusiasm, giving him hope for his return. Then up through the Stelvio Pass, and finally, on the 5th of September, he arrived in Innsbruck. In Milan, the provisional government was negotiating the surrender of the city, and even the fortress, which had orders to resist at all costs, was given up on the 17th of September by Bernardino da Corte, who had been left in charge by the Duke. At the beginning of October, Trivulzio entered Milan, and on the 5th, so did King Louis. Among the allies who entered with him were Filiberto II of Savoy and Cesare Borgia. Louis was not met with much enthusiasm. The people would have much preferred no ruler at all, rather than substituting one for another. Skirmishes between the populace and the soldiers, who were not reined in by the commanders, soon started. Louis did not hang around long, but in the just over 1 month he stayed in Milan, he received the visit of the young Duke of Milan, Francesco II. Now I can hear you say, wait a minute, who now? Isn't Ludovico il Moro the Duke? Well, you would be right, but you may also remember that he had usurped his nephew Gian Galeazzo, who had a son, Francesco. Now the little Duke, and more so his mother, Isabella of Aragon, came asking to have their duchy back. It wasn't going to happen. Louis brought little Francesco back to France with him, and he would pass the rest of his life there. He lived out his days in comfort. His mother, Isabella, having seen her last hope vanish, went back to Naples. While in Milan, while setting up a new senate and doing the odd bit of hunting and going to dinner parties, the king also went to admire a great clay model, which was supposedly the prototype for a giant bronze equestrian statue by a certain Leonardo from the Tuscan town of Vinci. The king also went to Santa Maria delle Grazie, where he saw, as well as the tomb of the dead Duchess Beatrice d'Este, a wall painting of Jesus and his buddies having their Last Supper. Louis stared at the masterpiece in awe for ages and decided that he must have Da Vinci at his court in France. He wanted to send for Da Vinci immediately, but by that time the artist was no longer in Milan. He had gone to Rome following an invitation by Cesare Borgia, convinced in his decision by his Florentine friend, Niccolò Machiavelli. We will also leave Louis behind for now, and Ludovico il Moro plotting his return. For we too have to go off and visit with Cesare Borgia as he embarks on his mission, as the writing on his sword read, towards Caesar or death. Thank you very much for listening. A History of Italy podcast is a Sentire Media production, created and hosted by me, Mike Corradi, and produced by my wonderful Patreon supporters, of whom I would like to thank now the first part of the Margherita Hack and Galileo Galilei level: Alison, Amanda, Annie, Anthony, Karsten, Catherine, C-Lane, Cindy, DB, Dean, Demetrio, Dennis, Dominique, Emily, Eric, Eviam, Federica, Gabriel, Greg, Gunnar, and Ignazio. Then, of course, we cannot forget the tippy-top Maria Montessori and Dante Alighieri level: Lisa K, Andrew M, Peter W, David L, David C, J.W. Sen, David A, Karen, Peter, Helenka, Kaiser Bosch, Brigid, Dallas, and Joseph. Thank you, one and all. If, like them, you would like to have access to ad-free episodes and extra content, you can go to historyofitaly.com, click on the support page, and become a Patreon supporter by clicking on the Patreon button. Otherwise, feel free to donate via good old PayPal. Why not? Thank you very, very much if you do so. If you'd just like to get in touch, please, if you'd just like to get in touch, we'd love to hear from you. hello@historyofitaly.com, or follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Once again, thank you so very much for listening, and until next time, arrivederci.
Oh, my dearest wife, I've come to you again in my darkest hour. If only you were here with me to help in these sad, sad times.
Ludovico.
Oh, crap! What's that?
It's me.
Beatrice?
Yes, it's me. Who else do you think? A ghostly apparition appears at my tomb with my voice looking like me. Who do you think I am? The Pope?
Okay. I was just startled.
Oh, get it together. I have to listen to you come and whine every week since I died, almost 3 years ago.
Wow, harsh.
What is it this time?
Well, I have decided that I will resist. I will go to the fortress, and from there, with the support of my loyal people...
Blah, blah, blah.
What?
Don't talk rubbish.
But I am...
The people hate you.
What? No, they love me. I'm the greatest duke in the history of dukes ever. My duchy was the best in history, the best economy.
Just because you say it over and over doesn't make it true.
Well, it usually works for my supporters.
Well, you can fool some of the people all the time, and all of the people some of the time, but not all of the people all of the time.
What?
Just grab the treasure and get out of here.
But I want my duchy, and everyone is nasty to me and saying nasty things and... Ow!
Put a sock in it.
But ghosts can slap people?
They can if you don't stop whining. Get your stuff together and get out, for goodness sake.
Very well. You're as wise in death as you were in life, my love, my only love.
Only love?
Yes?
Oh, what about Cecilia Gallerani and her stupid airmine?
I think I better get going.
Yes, I think so too. Finally get some peace and quiet around here.